Catholic channel Sirius XM 129 presents The Jen Fulwiler Show.
Do you know what my phone does? Every time I type the word show, it autocorrects it to the word shower. I texted someone, come over and I'll show you. This is a bad thing when it autocorrects it to come over and I'll shower you.
And now from Austin, Texas, here's Jen Fulwiler.
Your friend Jen joining you here from 2 to 4 East. That's 11 to 1 Pacific, as I do every day. Delighted to be joining you here on this beautiful fall Monday afternoon. I have an amazing show lined up for you. I'm very excited. I head out to Rockville, Maryland for my D.C. area stand-up comedy show. That is Thursday, this coming Thursday. It is sold out. It's a big theater. We're going to have a lot of people there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And see, if you didn't get tickets, you got to be on top of these things. But if you didn't get tickets to that show, I am filming my stand-up comedy special. It'll be the regular stand-up comedy show that I do, but amazing because we're blowing it out because we are filming a stand-up comedy special like the kind that you see on Netflix, the whole thing, and that will be in Chicago on October 23rd. That venue is mostly sold out, but we do have some $15 tickets left. They're up in the balcony, but the balcony is a really cool space. I think you will actually, in some ways, I feel like the balcony tickets are better. It's an amazing view of this historic theater. We have a lot of people flying in from other parts of the country. That is what a big deal this is. So you can get your tickets for the Chicago show, the only show that has tickets left that has not sold out, at naughtycornertour.com. I've said before that you really want to make sure you get tour in there. Naughty Corner Tour. And don't just search Naughty Corner. Yeah, you don't want to do that either. And watch your credit card statement. This is a true story. I keep hearing from people that, let's say their husband will get tickets to the show. Like, oh, honey, I thought this would be fun for us. We can go out. The wife looks at the credit card statement from her husband's card, and it says Naughty Corner. You purchased something from Naughty Corner on it. And I have actually we are having an issue at my shows with the theaters calling me and saying we're getting a bunch of fraud reports because some of these theaters put on your credit card Naughty Corner. And so people see this show up on the statement. They're like, this is fraud, or my husband was into something he shouldn't have been into. Whatever it is, I'm declining it. So just look, watch. It's the Naughty Corner Tour. It's a reference to the Time Out Corner. It's like Time Out. You send your kids to the Naughty Corner. Anyway, I am ruining people's credit card statements across the country. And again, you really, you want to get that. You want to get that URL right. naughtycornertour.com. And the Chicago show on the 23rd, it's going to be wild. Don't forget that you can always find full episodes of this fine program available on demand on the SiriusXM app, and you can also listen live on the app if you are not normally in your car when I am on the air. SiriusXM has just made some great changes where you no longer have to pay extra to access the app. That used to be a thing, but now most subscriptions just come with access to the app, so you can listen live and listen on demand on the app. So look up my show there. And the other thing that I was saying on Friday, I mentioned in passing that Lino and Tyler from the Catholic Guy Show, which of course airs right after this one, they are coming to my show this week in Rockville, Maryland. I mentioned that in passing on Friday, and then I took calls about something totally different. And it's all my callers wanted to talk about. So evidently, this is my big news. I didn't know that this was the big news in my life, but it is. Lino and Tyler will be at my Rockville show this week on Thursday. And evidently, that's why most people are going. I didn't realize that until I mentioned it in passing on Friday. All right, speaking of all this stuff we're doing, for my Chicago show and the Plano show, we are bringing the entire family. I will have all 6 kids out there. It's going to be something else. I will just tell you that. So we do a lot of travel as a family, and the holidays are actually coming right up. I mean, October is just flying by. We've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas coming up. So I wanted my friend Marika to stop by. She's got 3 kids herself. They do a lot of travel, and she writes about travel as well. And I really think that understanding how to travel with kids, having some best practices can make all the difference. We have done family trips that were magical and memorable, and we all look back on them and smile. We have also done trips that were not magical, and the only thing when we look back on them, we're like, it's amazing any of us still speak to each other. And a lot of this has to do with just thinking it through, planning, being realistic. Marika Flatt, welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to be here.
So yeah, and now we are going to talk about family travel, but since you're a mom yourself, your kids are ages 12, 15, and 18. I was on Instagram stories yesterday talking about kids and phones. I have to bring this up briefly since we will have a lot of parents tuning in interested in this subject. Can I just ask before we get to travel, what is your policy? Well, what ages do your kids get phones?
Oh, so when they actually get them for the first time?
Yeah.
I think it's been about 6th grade. So I would say maybe 11-ish.
Yeah.
So, and
that's
they're all
good.
different
That's the right
too.
way to do it.
Yeah. So, you know, and I will tell you that our youngest ended up getting his phone mainly for the reason that he was in Boy Scouts and still is, and we were dropping him off to meetings.
Right.
And I really needed him to be able to communicate with us, let us know when he needed to be picked up, and kind of same thing with swim practice for him. So, and I made it very clear to him, you are getting this phone because I need to communicate with you. I want you to communicate with me. No other reasons. Everything else is extra. Your games, your communication with your friends.
Now, did that stand? Did he only use it for that communication?
At first.
Yeah, right.
But now,
Yeah.
we're, I guess, a year or a year and a half after that point. And
yeah. Here's what I was saying on Instagram that I want to say to all my parent listeners. We are a rare family that none of my kids have cell phones, including my 15-year-old. My 15-year-old son, who now goes, he just transitioned from homeschool to Catholic school. He's at a Catholic high school. He does not have a cell phone. None of my kids have cell phones. And I was on Instagram yesterday saying, it's the worst. I hate it. The only reason we've done this is because we were too lazy. Because also with 6 kids, you give one kid a phone, then they all want phones, and that really starts to add up financially. So we just haven't dealt with it. This is not out of any high-minded principles that our kids don't have phones. And I was telling parents on Instagram, it is the worst. Like, I lost my 12-year-old daughter at the store yesterday. She went off to get something, and I went a different direction. And I'm like, how am I supposed to find her? Like, bird calls, like, caw, caw, caw. And like, she calls back, and that's how we find each other. And then in my house, let's say I need to ask a kid a simple question, like, did you feed the dog? It's your day to feed the dog. Did you feed the dog? Marika, I have to get up off the couch and like trek up the stairs of our house. And granted, our house is not big. It's a 3-bedroom house. But I'm like, I could have gotten this taken care of in one text. So all of you parents, I know that a lot of parents have a lot of guilt about the way their kids use phones. As a family whose kids do not have phones, it's the worst. It just causes nothing but problems in our life. And I wouldn't even mind if my kids had a little, that one app that's not really supposed to be on there. Honestly, I think it's worth the trade-off for the convenience. So keep on keeping on, parents whose kids have phones. Because it is convenient, right?
embarrassingly, there have been about 2 times I have called one of my children on their phone from my kitchen.
I would. Oh, Marika, I would do that like every. No, but I wouldn't
it feels
call.
so awful to do it.
No, I wouldn't even. I'd be like, this is too much interpersonal communication. I would just text. I mean, as soon as my kids get phones, we're just. I mean, I guess I'll schedule family time where we actually look each other in the eye and speak to each other. Everything else will be done by text. Like last night, I mean, you and I are both busy moms. You're a professional woman. You work, I work. We are exhausted at the end of the day, right? And it was like 11 p.m. My husband was out. And you know how it is when one spouse is gone, rules cease to exist in your house. It's like we don't even know what bedtime is. You can have ice cream for dinner. I don't know. That's at least the way it works in my house. So I'm lying in bed. It's 11 p.m. No one has gone to bed. They're all still messing around. And I'm like, I wish I could just text my kids and tell them to go to bed, because I would have them in bed if I could send a group text, but I'm so exhausted. I'm too tired to get up and physically go tell everyone to get in bed. So I honestly think I would be a better parent if I could just text my kids my instructions to them.
And I'm laughing because you do need a group text.
Yeah, totally. Oh, yeah. With a family of 8. It's like there is a logistical issue of having to tell them everything face to face. Like, do you know how hard it is? Actually, this is a funny story, Marika. As a mom yourself, any parent will be able to relate to this. I was trying to call a family meeting recently because this month is very busy for us. We have a lot of travel, so it was very important that everyone understand what's going on. We're all on the same page. So I tried to schedule a family meeting, but there are 8 people in my family. And so it's like I would get 6 of them assembled, and then one kid would run off, and then my husband would get a phone call just when that kid came back. At the same time, we have a lot of people bringing us meals right now. We experienced a death in the family, and so people have kindly been stopping by to drop off dinners and stuff. Right when I finally got my family of 8 assembled for the family meeting, because to your point, we don't have a group text, so this is how I have to do it. This sweet friend of mine knocks on the door with food, and so I open the door, and I'm like, she's actually been on the show before. Her name is Kate Roberts. I was like, Kate, come in. You stand right there. And just while I turned my back to open the door, I saw one of my kids starting to leave. Like, I lost their attention just because I turned my back. They started to leave. And I start yelling at everyone. I'm like, if anyone leaves this room, I'm going to burn down this house. Like, I just turned into this drama queen. Kate, my friend Kate, is sitting there literally holding her casserole while I am shouting at my family about what is going to happen if one person leaves this family meeting now that I finally had everyone assembled. And Marika, the moral of the story is let your kids have phones, because if I could just group text them, none of that would have happened.
Because that's like herding cats.
Oh, it is.
Right.
Trying to get my family of 8 together. It is. It's like herding cats. It's impossible. We'll never do another family meeting again. It was too hard.
Well, it did give me a little bit of anxiety just knowing that it was your family of 8 doing the book tour all together, because I was envisioning how that was going to work for you, because a book tour in and of itself is extremely tiring.
Oh, yeah, if it's just the author.
Just you, no one else to take care of. So, I was... for having panic attacks.
For listeners who missed that, when my book came out last year, we took all 6 kids on a 9-city book tour of the East Coast. We started in Atlanta, drove all the way up to Boston, hitting all of these cities on the way. Can you imagine the logistics of that? Where do you stay? If we do a hotel room, we need 2 hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. Where do we feed everyone? Because when you're traveling with a group that big, you cannot just go to a restaurant like you would if you're traveling solo. I mean, that would break the bank, us going to restaurants for 3 meals a day. Right. I cannot describe the logistical undertaking that was. Like, my husband went to Yale, and honestly, and like he's a lawyer, and he went to business school and all that. And I feel like it took the full weight of his entire educational background and work experience to get that planned. I mean, we couldn't have done it if he hadn't had those skills.
It's an amazing feat.
It was a lot.
So many people should be in awe of that situation.
I will actually own that. I'm not going to do the false humility. Oh, no. It was a nightmare, and I earned that.
Yes.
It was amazing. And that was largely my husband. So, Marika, that's actually a great transition to the writing that you've been doing. You did some stuff. We're local to Texas, so you people can look up the writing you've done, texaslifestylemag.com. Even if they don't live in Texas, they can find the writing that you've been doing. And so, you and I have both found that if you have a few best practices and you plan it the right way, travel with family does not have to be a nightmare. It can actually be fun. And I will say, for this book tour, we were on the road for 3 weeks with 6 kids. At the time, my oldest was 13 and my youngest was 4. We were switching cities just about every day. We stayed a couple places 2 or 3 days. And not only did we survive, but honestly, those are some of my family's best memories.
Yeah.
And so, look, if we can make that work, whatever travel our listeners have coming up, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever they have on the calendar, you can make it work and you can make it fun no matter what your circumstances or your budget is, right?
Right. And we've been road tripping with our kids since they were babies, all of them. And we would take trips to Florida. We would take trips where we were overnighting on the way. And those are some of my dearest memories of when my kids were little. And they remember all of those trips. They remember those great times. And, I always say it's the journey, not the destination. And so we would try to kind of mix a little of, oh, that place looks cool. Let's stop and look at that. When, you don't want to just be looking at your watch. Google Maps is kind of horrible in a way for that now for parents, because you can put in your destination.
Right.
We're going to whatever it might be, Panama City Beach. And, we've got 8 hours and 6 minutes. And in your mind, you're thinking, okay, we've got a schedule to stick to.
Yes.
But
yes.
really, that takes some of the fun out of it. So trying to have a little bit more relaxed feel for your journey, so that if you see something cool, stop and take a look. Let the kids get out and explore. If you see a billboard for something that looks fun and funky in Louisiana, or, something in Alabama that you would have never seen in your own state. So I think that really helps. And our kids still to this day love road tripping. But the funny thing is, we waited until they were a little bit older to do air travel with all of them. And so
Smart.
they, and I will say now it's been, let's say 6 or 7 years that we've done air travel with them. And it is so fun to see that through their eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they still love it. My daughter will tell you that an airport is one of her favorite places to be.
That's awesome.
About the opposite for me.
Yeah.
But, that just lets me see their joy of travel in a different way from my perspective. And so, you can really utilize all those different pieces and just make sure that whatever your trip is, and I will say there is a difference between a family trip and a family vacation.
Yes. Well, for us parents, let's face it, until your youngest kid is like 16, it's always a trip for us as parents rather than a quote unquote vacation.
Yes, it definitely is. And we've had both. We've had the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, our special travel issue that came out today is actually not at all about where you and I live. It's
and when you say are you talking about Texas Lifestyle Magazine?
Right.
And can people who aren't in Texas, can they access this
Absolutely.
like online? Okay. TexasLifestyleMag.com. Yeah.
And it just came out this morning, and there's actually very little of just Texas in there. We cover domestic travel, international travel, and so that is applicable to anybody, anywhere. And we have places in there that are really great for family travel. We have some that are really great for a parent to go with just one kid. Those trips, if anybody out there has not had the beauty of traveling with just one of your children and you have multiple children, those are amazing trips.
Yeah.
And
I know. Let me just jump in and say I know someone who does this. They have a tradition that for each kid's 10th birthday, one parent takes one kid to one destination. They might go to New York or Disney World or whatever.
She's a mutual friend of ours.
Oh, okay. Catherine Whitaker. Yeah, she's a guest. I think people know that name. She's been a guest on the show. Catherine's fantastic. And so, yeah, they do that. I'm not organized enough because I'm like, I just know that I would get busy and like one kid would get skipped for their special trip. But if you can do that, that's a really cool tradition.
I just read her book over the weekend, and that jumped out at me. That's
right.
something
Yes,
that's
it's on
really
my desk.
neat.
I just held it up.
Yes, and you know what I thought about when I read that part of the book? Because she says that the child gets to choose which parent goes.
Yeah.
I thought, oh my gosh, my heart would be broken if I didn't get chosen.
Right. Yeah.
A couple years in a row.
They are a peaceful, loving family. Like in our family, nothing about that would work. But that's the problem is our family there. And Marika, let me also say that I'm not. This is going to sound like I'm trying to jam in a Catholic point to what we're talking about, but I actually mean this quite sincerely. I have found that travel with kids is so much easier now that I'm Catholic and I can bring my faith into it, because I did a little bit of travel. I had a toddler and a baby right around the time I converted to Catholicism. And so I did do a little bit of travel with kids before that. And there was much more of a sense, especially as a parent, I was a typical control freak parent, and without any sort of sense of faith. I was an atheist, so there was this sense that everything is up to me, making sure that my kids have the best memories, making sure that everything is perfect in their lives. In atheism, there's no sense of destiny, like that this is not totally within my control, and I'm not the one in charge here, and God has a plan. I didn't have any of that. And so when I would travel with, let's say, my 2-year-old and the baby, and I was trying to give my 2-year-old a cool experience, and let's say, there was a traffic detour, and so we couldn't stop at the museum I wanted to take him to, I would flip out about that. It would be like, I read in a book that he'll never get into the right college if we don't go to this museum. And, and I would flip out. Mm-hmm. Whereas now that I'm Catholic, I really, I think I am never more religious than when I'm traveling with kids. Mm-hmm. Because now I would look at it like, okay, you know what? We wanted to go to that museum, but this traffic detour means, or it was, we showed up and it was closed or whatever. But you know what? I'm going to trust that God has a plan for us in this moment right now, and that God will lead us to something different, and God will bring good out of this situation. And very often I'll look around, and let's say we end up meeting a really cool person or having this really amazing experience that we never would have had if plan A had worked out. I really see God with us in travel. And I will say I have been a much more chilled out parent when it comes to traveling with kids since my conversion to Catholicism.
Well, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I grew up as a cradle Catholic, and some of the things that I remember as a kid road tripping with my parents. Number one, we said a rosary in the car each day.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, good for your family. That's amazing.
Whenever we were on the road, my mom led a rosary. Number two, if it was the weekend, no matter where we were, my mom found a church for us to go to. And there were no iPhones back then.
Yeah, there
so
wasn't
I'm not really sure how she did
masstimes.org.
it.
Like, yeah, right. You get out the yellow pages.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea how she did that. But we would be camping in the middle of nowhere, and we would drive 30 minutes to go to Mass.
Even camping, you'd go to Mass. That's fantastic.
And the great thing about that is that I've kept that with me, and I can't say that we've made every single time we've been out on a weekend, but my kids will tell you that some of the coolest masses they have attended have been on the road somewhere.
Yeah.
And that they loved. So, my 18-year-old daughter and I got to take the trip of a lifetime back in June as a graduation present for her. She graduated from high school, and we went on a Windstar cruise. And so we went over to Europe, and we had this just fantastic situation happen when we were in Bergen, Norway, because we had been on a sea day on Sunday. So that meant the boat.
SEA? Okay. I didn't know.
Did not stop.
Okay, so like on the water. Okay.
On the water. So we didn't have the opportunity to go to Mass. And on Tuesday morning, we saw, or I guess we saw this on Monday, but we saw that there would be Mass at this beautiful little church that was right by where our boat was docked. And it was going to be at 9:30 in the morning. And she wasn't a morning person, but I got her off the boat and we went, and we didn't understand the whole Mass because it wasn't in English.
In Norway? Yeah.
But she will tell you that that's one of her most favorite experiences we were actually gone for 3 full weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And she'll tell you that was one of the most unexpected, cool experiences to go to Mass.
Yeah, that's what I have found. I mean, people can imagine traveling as a family of 8. It is not a small thing to get us to Mass when we are traveling.
So.
But I was so and it can feel sometimes like, oh, it's just this obligation, like, oh, you've got to make it to Mass on Sunday. But when you change your frame of mind, it can lead to some of the coolest experiences ever. Like, for example, actually on the book tour, there was a time when I was driving from, where was it? I was driving somewhere in the East Coast around New Jersey and Philadelphia, that kind of area. And we'd planned to go to Mass, but all of the websites were all messed up. And so the one church we wanted to go to, it turns out we misunderstood when the time was. And I was getting so frustrated, I almost just gave up and said, okay, we tried to go to Mass and they gave us the wrong time. And this is, I've got these kids and they're so frustrated. but I stuck with it. We ended up going to the cathedral in Philly because it's the only time that would work. I had to go way out of my way. Marika, it was the most beautiful experience. And the cardinal was the one who did the mass, and we got to meet him. And so it was this, I mean, and the cathedral in Philly is like mind-blowing. Like, I did not know how amazing that was. I mean, I've seen a few cathedrals in my life, and that thing just blew my mind. And again, the cardinal is the one doing the mass. He was greeting people afterwards. We were able to shake his hand. My kids got a picture with him. None of that would have happened if I had just shrugged my shoulders and said, well, we're on vacation, whatever, can't make it to church.
Yeah.
And over again, I find that God leads us to these amazing experiences when we take this obligation seriously.
And, you know, we go to such lengths to raise our kids in our faith. I mean, just you were mentioning your oldest is in Catholic school. That's a major commitment. And you're committing financially, you're committing getting him back and forth. And if we think about it and we think all the lengths that we go to in a typical week to keep our kids engaged with their faith, why don't we do that when we're on a trip too?
Yeah,
you know?
That's a good point.
And, you know, really that experience that you talked about might be something that your kids took away from that trip that, you know, they'll remember for the rest of their lives. It's just those simple things. And I think that's another thing about travel that's so great. It's that oftentimes, because I am a travel writer, sometimes we'll go into a trip with an itinerary that somebody has prepared for us. So we know, okay, we're going to this activity, we're eating at this place. But some of the greatest memories are coming out of things that are the unexpected. And so you just never know. You never know, you know, what that day will leave you with in terms of a memory.
Yep.
And so you just be open to all of it.
And that's such a good point about bringing our faith into travel as parents. Because, Marika, I did an interesting survey when I first converted to Catholicism. Any time, this was probably weird and made people feel uncomfortable, but anytime I talked to someone who was an adult who said that most of their siblings stayed Catholic, they were raised in a Catholic family, and they had, you know, multiple siblings, and it seems like something was different about their house, that everyone stayed Catholic. Now, of course, I mean, people's spiritual journeys are up to God. I mean, it's not parents' fault if their kids leave the faith most of the time. But, you know, every now and then you encounter a family where it's like, okay, these parents did seem to do something different that was uniquely effective in their family. And I would always survey these people and say, okay, what did your parents do that you've got like 9 siblings and every single one of them go to daily mass? Like, okay, something happened there. And the most common thing that they all said, you know, some of them, they all went to public schools. Some of them were homeschooled. Some of them went to Catholic school. I saw no correlations there. But one of the big things I saw is that they would say, I saw my parents trust God in real ways. Like, it wasn't just that they said, oh yeah, we believe this, we believe that, let's say our dinner prayer. But like, when they were out of money and they couldn't pay the bills, one of the first things they said is, let's pray. Let's ask God what direction he wants to lead us. Like, should I quit this job? Should I make this big life change? Should we move to a new city? Let's take this to prayer. And when the kids see their parents trusting God, acting like God is real, not just talking about how God is real, it seems to really help kids keep their faith. And again, I'm not saying it's like totally up to us as parents whether or not our kids stay Catholic, but I think it helps.
Yeah.
And never do you have more of an opportunity to do that than when you're on a road trip and you get a flat tire. You know, if your kids see you say, you know what, this is a bummer and I don't like this, but God's going to bring it out of this. Let's be expectant of how God is going to move in this moment. Those are the kind of moments that stick with your kids, right?
Oh yeah, when the rubber meets the road.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah, literally. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think another sort of way that we can bring our faith into travel is a lot of times we get bummed out that, especially in this day and age of Facebook and Instagram, it always seems like every single person you know has better travel experiences than you do. Like, I follow a family on Instagram that they have done many trips to Europe. It seems like they go to Europe multiple times per year, and they have a lot of kids. And I'm like, what is it? Do you have like daddy Warbucks? Is like, I mean, how is this even possible that you're funding this? And so sometimes it's tempting to feel bummed out. Like, well, I guess I won't plan vacations as a family because we have more kids than they do, or we're on a budget, or, you know, and it's tempting to despair. But what we can do is say, hey, let's look at the mission for our family, and let's look at ways that we can do awesome things together that fit into our budget. So maybe we don't have the budget to go to Europe like it seems like every single person I follow on Instagram does. Okay, that's not in our budget. So why don't we look at what we can do? We've been talking about, you write for Texas Lifestyle Magazine, and this is something, even people who are not in Texas, there are a lot of great tips that people from all over the country, all over the world can get in on texaslifestylemag.com. And so you guys talk about a lot of road trips and day trips and things like that. And who knows, you might end up having even more magical experiences doing a road trip 2 hours away from your city than you would if you could afford to go to Europe.
Oh, sure. You know, I grew up, my family of 5 growing up was on a budget, and our typical annual trip was to Garner State Park, which was...
Where's that?
It was only 1 hour away from where we lived. So it's in the hill country.
Oh, in Texas?
In Texas.
Oh, I'm a Texan, and I'm like, what is Garner State? Okay, I guess I need to go there.
I will tell you, it is the most popular state park in the nation.
What?
In terms of numbers.
How do I evidently I live near this thing and I've never heard of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, but you're actually proving my point that because I'm like fantasizing about going to Paris or wherever it is my friends on Instagram are taking their kids, I am missing the fact that I live a few hours away from what is evidently some really popular state park.
That's right. And we grew up going there the 4th of July week every summer. My dad would book it when we left. He would book it for the next 4th of July week. And we would go and we would camp there for a week. And that was our annual family vacation. And it was 1 hour from where we lived, but we felt like it was a world away. And we so looked forward to it. We each got to bring a friend. And we didn't know any different. I didn't go to Europe until I was, late into my 30s.
Yeah.
And that didn't matter. It was all about, experiencing that as a family and what it means to you. And, a lot of families like to build the tradition of going to the same place year after year because there's something so special about that. We do a trip like that Columbus Day weekend every year coming up next weekend. And, it's built a special tradition for our family. And then other people, and I kind of have this mindset too. There's so many amazing places to go. Why go to the same place twice?
Right.
Because, you could travel your whole life and never see all the places that you wanted to see. So it really just depends. It's so subjective. It's what works for your family, what makes sense. What makes sense for you to take one of your kids on a one-on-one vacation might be a totally different kind of trip than you would go as a full family. One, because of cost. You can maybe spend a little bit more money if it's just 2 of you versus if it's, 5, 8 of you, however many. And so each trip is going to be different. Some require more planning than others. November and December are the most popular months to travel. Surprisingly, it's not even summer.
Wow. Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So the holidays beat even summer in terms of travel.
It was reported that 54.3 million people traveled for Thanksgiving last year and 112 million people traveled for Christmas.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those are holidays that we think of, let's stick close to home. Let's celebrate it at home. But a lot of families have either a cool tradition of going somewhere else to spend time with family, or if you want to incorporate travel into that, we've started doing this the last several years when our kids are getting older. We take a special trip during that school break to go and we spend it by ourselves as a family.
Yeah, I've heard of people starting to do that. Especially, I talked to someone who had experienced some loss. Like, since we experienced a loss in our family, people are telling stories about their own loss. And one of my friends said that they no longer have living parents, and that was a very sad thing for them because they used to have these big family get-togethers. And they said, what we decided to do, especially when the first Christmas hit without the mother had died, and that was the last living parent. And she said, we decided to bring good out of that. We spent all year saving so that we could, as a family at Christmas, I forget where it was they went, but they went, they went to some city they'd always wanted to visit, and they said, we're just going to go on vacation for Christmas, and instead of a whole bunch of presents, we're going to have this experience and spend time together as a family. And I think it's so important that we think outside of the box like that for any travel, whether it's now in the fall or whether we're starting to think about holiday travel. So, Marika, I want to talk to you about more specifics of what we can do to make travel easier, and we will get to that right after this here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.